and so on. And so I really do enjoy my job. But in reality, I thought this picture is fantastic. We are, and I don't know who else is an HR professional among us, we are pulled in all sorts of directions. And I actually think, although we don't snoop around on people, I actually do think we do a combination of all of those things. Yes, we have to hire people. Yes, we help with development and culture and all of those good things. We do have meetings, we do talk, but also we do have to do some really challenging things where we have to give either bad news through disciplinaries or even having to let people go. So it's a very, very challenging position. And I would dare you to, those who haven't or not interested in HR, spend a month in your local human resource department and then come and tell me all about it. I think what will be a really good idea before I get into my presentation itself is, if it's okay, Ignatius, if anybody has any questions, feel free through the chat box to send your questions or write your questions down, particularly as I go through the presentation. And at the appropriate time, we'll also have a look at those questions so that you don't forget any questions as we go along. So I just want to share with you my journey. And as I was saying, and my background, I've been very fortunate enough to operate in the HR world. And I want to share with you 5 key lessons. But before I do that, I think that I would say that, and this part of my presentation is I will be talking about myself and my career, but I will also be hopefully imparting some words of wisdom and things that I've learned along the way, and hopefully that you will be able to take on, simply because when I was developing my career, people did that for me. We didn't have, obviously, Zoom, we didn't have access like we have today, and I didn't attend many of these sessions. In fact, I don't think I attended any. But I think that the benefit that we have today is that we have that opportunity to kind of engage with professionals who have done this before. So I personally feel very strongly that whatever career path you choose should come with passion, right? I think it's very important to be passionate about what you do. I love doing what I do. I feel it comes naturally to me. I enjoy it, I feel like I'm good at it, and I've made a career out of it. I urge anyone who's sitting on this call today and thinking about what their career is. For example, for me, passion needs to be coupled with some knowledge and skill. We'll talk about that. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. But I think that it is very important to think about doing something from within. I have met too many people, unfortunately young people, who have said to me, I didn't get the option to choose what I studied at school. My parents said I had to do X and Y. I fell into this environment. I don't really like it, but I'm doing it. I see too many people in the workplace where passion doesn't come through in what they do. And one thing I would say is passion makes the good times great and makes the hard times bearable, right? So just think about that. So if you have passion, it's what carries you through, because we all know in our jobs, every day is not a brilliant, wonderful day. You do have down days, right? So that's really, I think, is very important. And my career goes very simply. I started my career in London. I found HR and HR found me. I was very nosy. And I wanted to find out lots of things about people. And so that kind of led me to be very inquisitive. People felt able to come and talk to me and approach me on issues. They felt I was confidential and I was balanced and I was unbiased. And I felt like it was something I could do. And therefore, those days it was personnel. And so I started my career as an HR generalist, and then I progressed through the ranks. I think what I remember as I progressed my career is my positive attitude. I was willing to do everything that it takes to kind of get there, and I wasn't afraid to do the things that other people wouldn't do. Of course, when I was developing my career in HR, there were also tough times, right? So young person, young family, you know, married, children, trying to balance that, trying to show up at work. the work balance conversation is a very real conversation and can be very challenging, but I try to pursue and, you know, make my way through all of that. And I'm very thankful. And I think for me, those were sacrifices that you had to make along the way. So if it meant I had to stay later, then sometimes I didn't see my family, but then there are times when I had to put that first. But I think that these are the challenges that you have to kind of juggle and you have to manage as you go along the way. And it paid off. I mean, it paid off with more hard work, which is more responsibility, right? And more exposure, which to me equals more hard work. So I'm very grateful. And my attitude towards not succeeding, I think, was healthy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later when we talk about failure. I have a lot to say on that. So my 5 key lessons, and I'll try to weave my own experiences at the same time. So knowledge. So I think what I would say to folks on the webinar today is, I can't stress enough that for me, getting my qualification, getting my university stuff out of the way, and then getting my professional qualification in HR set me apart from others that were working in human resources at the time. It gave me a platform of knowledge to then go into the workplace and then start to work on the job. So I can't stress enough to you that I wanted to know more about my profession. So I therefore was making sure that I got my qualification, right? I furthered that experience. That was very, very important. And I can't stress enough to you that if you are to pursue and progress your career, you do need to think about the kind of knowledge you gain. And I know that especially in Africa, because I'm talking to an African audience, we love certificates, we love papers, we love, I've gone on a course, here's my certificate. That is one baseline. The second baseline is when you have that knowledge, what do you do with that knowledge? Do you practice that knowledge? There's no point in getting those qualifications, and at the end of the day, you've got the certificate, and then when somebody asks you a question, you can't figure out how you're supposed to even respond to that question. And I say that because I have met many, unfortunately, people that on paper have brilliant qualifications, but when it comes to applying the knowledge that they have gained, they struggle. So I do think that that is also very important. Then the next lesson that I learned along the way is being personable. So I keep saying to myself, it's like the likability factor. Now, I know, I mean, especially now, we meet people from afar and we immediately have an opinion on them. I don't like that person. Oh, that person's too pretentious. Oh, that person's too known. Oh, that person. I think that being personable is extremely important. And it's extremely important for a number of reasons. So when I look at myself, what I felt got me ahead, especially when I was much younger in my career, was the fact that I had the likability factor. I could chill with my paddies, you know, I could talk with them, we could still be friends, but they also knew I was principled, I had integrity, I would tell the truth, I would be balanced about it, I would be constructive, I would laugh, I would joke, I would do all of those things. You know, sometimes I think we feel that when we're developing our career, we should have a persona, we should be hard, that people can't break in. But, you know, the same way I say, on the way up, you will meet lots of people, and it's interesting because we all will find our way down, and you will still meet those people. Now think about that for one moment. Now, if you have treated people not right, or you've not left a great impression on someone, that was 10 years ago, that was 15 years ago, that was 5 years ago. How do you think that's going to help you when you will come across somebody who knows somebody? We are talking Africa. Our borders have opened. the reality is, even if I talk about Nigeria or I talk about Ghana, we all know someone who knows someone. It doesn't take us long to say, oh, I know someone in Kenya, let me ask about them. And we rely heavily on references. So I think what's important, what helped me was the fact that I was down to earth and I was personable. A lot of the times when we talk about leaders we like, we admire, we follow, we always say the person's down to earth. The person relates to us. So that relatability, personability, likability factor is important. Of course, it is not the only attribute you need to have. You can't be a really nice person and not be skilled and not have knowledge. You won't get very far. But you understand that, you know, that does play a factor. So the third area for me is not being afraid of hard work. I know we'll all take a deep breath, because I when, you know, in my career, I worked hard. I mean, if anyone who knows me will say that lady works hard. I am willing to put the hours, I'm willing to put the time, I'm willing to put the effort, I'm willing to roll my sleeves up, I'm willing to do the work with you, I'm willing to do the work, because I felt that it was important for me to rely upon myself. Yeah, because I knew that if I relied upon myself, I wouldn't let myself down. Now, things are very different. I mean, we have other challenges, and I wouldn't say that hard work has gone out of the window, but we have different challenges. And what I have found along my own journey is the people that have hard work ethic, they progress well. And I think this attitude stems from very young. So for example, I identify working hard with how I was raised. I saw my parents, I saw what they were doing. They took work very seriously. You know, they were very focused about it. They sort of said, you know, don't play with your work and all of that kind of stuff. Of course, hard work, you've got to think about if that equals productivity. You can't just be working, and you can't be busy. Busy is different. You know, if you're busy and you're busy doing not much and you're not making an impact, that's not helping anybody. Hard work equals some result. And so I think it's very important to think about how you get hard work. Now, for me, in my career, when the jobs that I was doing, hard work meant extra projects. Hard work meant helping others when I had my own work to do, but I was willing and wanted to get involved in other things as well, that I would take on other responsibilities. And because people know that you're hardworking and you get the job done, you end up getting more work. So for me, trying to balance all of that with family life, etc., was obviously very challenging, but also you can see what the reward brought. I think the other lesson for me in my career was around communication. And I would say that I've been able to communicate well, but I've learned to communicate better. When we are younger, we're in a different environment. We don't take this very seriously. We look at the Obamas of this world and we think, what a great orator. He communicates so well. I remember an old boss of mine. Oh, he would tell stories, and the way he would tell stories, it was just so insightful. And we would say, how did you do it? And he said, he got a coach. I was like, okay. He got a coach. He perfected his communication skills. He, back in those days, stood in front of the mirror, practicing what he would say, thinking about the stories that he would tell and how he would then communicate. And he then did it in front of an audience of 5, 10, 100, 200 before it became very natural. I also started in the same way, to the point now where obviously I'm doing this webinar today, and if people want me to present something or speak about something, which I also do, it's very easy because they know that this comes naturally to me. Although, like everybody else, even if you've got a natural gift, you have to perfect that gift, right? Because that gift can be outdated. So I think it's very important on communication is also being concise. You know, I remember the days for me when I was much younger, and I would, in my head, if I wanted to say something in a meeting, I would think about it, and then somebody else has said it. because I didn't know how to say it, how to frame it. So again, the communication being concise, being clear, help people understanding what you're saying and why, not coming across as too known or rude, but insightful, not just asking a question for the sake of asking. Communication is very important. And then the fifth point for me was around network. And I mentioned this about personability, and now you can see the connection. Networking, I have been fortunate because I've worked directly with people and we've done great work together. They are able to vouch for me. That is your network. Don't think that because you worked on a small project and it was only 2 weeks that Irene won't remember 5 years later. It's really important, I think, being deliberate about nurturing a good network. And that is, you've got to ask yourself the people that you engage with, the work that you do, etc., etc. Very, very important that you nurture that network. And I think that was also very important for me. So these are some of the lessons. These are not all of the lessons that I learned, but my story tell really is here that I've been able to, lucky enough, build my knowledge, been personable and likable, worked hard, been able to be concise with my communication. That's my written communication, as well as my verbal communication, as well as network. And then when you bring that all together, that's a fascinating combination. That all of a sudden, when you look at leaders, you start to see elements of those particular attributes in those leaders that maybe that you admire from afar, because they've taken the time to perfect some of these skills very well. You know, I'm sure you've met people that you think, my goodness, how does this person know everybody in town? They make it their business to find out and know people and engage people and have that great personality and be able to do that good work. And that's what I did through my career. Next slide. I think that one of the things that I share with you as well is, what do employers look out for? Because I know that maybe this is one of the questions that might come up. And I've been a business executive for a long time. I run my own business now, and I'm very aware, especially in HR, what we look out for in our employees. So I think that there are a couple of things before I go on to my slide is, employers look out for initiative, knowledge, not being afraid to challenge, willingness to go the extra mile, ideas, skills, being able to use new technology, having presence, concise, good communicator. I could go on and on and on. And I'm sure now that's scary because you're thinking, my goodness, do we really need to have all of these things? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's absolutely achievable. Now, what I've done is I've tried to put this in 3 buckets. And so the first bucket for me is self-mastery. I can't tell you enough. What for me, self-mastery is about knowledge, initiative, and skill. Just think about what I mean by self-mastery. I have met too many people in my time, in my career, that say, Irene, the organization used to do this and this, and they haven't done it, and they haven't trained me, and they haven't promoted me, and they don't like me. And there's a lot of reasons why you put a lot of emphasis on the organization. I'm here to tell you today, you manage your own career. An organization can help you facilitate your career. They do not owe you to get to the top. If you're good with the attributes that I said, then it's likely that you will get there. Most leaders who've reached the top manage their own career. They're very clear on their relationship with their employer. They will work hard, they will be very committed, they will do all the things that the employer asks them to do. They will also make sure that they master their subject. That means they know their subject well, they know their field inside out well, they know who works within that field, they've got exposure, they're able to talk on their subject matter, they've trained, they've developed themselves, they've got the new latest technology, whatever. They are self-masters. And they are very confident in their ability. And if this organization doesn't want it, they're able to move over to another organization. So I think it is really important that we take responsibility. The second area is around, I've said, the agile professional. Agility. You will hear us talk about agility a lot. We talk about agility and people are like, what does that mean? I put them in the buckets of flexibility, adaptability, and going the extra mile, and new technology. So think about it. Agile is being able to change, being flexible, being adaptable. It is about, and when an employer sees this organization, oh, I gave Irene this, she was able to turn this piece of work around. I gave her something completely different. She was able to turn it around. She didn't say to me, I haven't got knowledge, I haven't got experience, I don't know. She's agile, she's flexible. Think about the world we live in today. Think about Africa. If our borders completely open and we have bigger competition, which we're trying to do, we're competing on a global scale. We need to be agile. We are competing against the rest of the world. So it is important to have that flexibility, to have that agility, to be able to have that new technology. We can't be in the space of what's the latest technology? I've not heard of it. I don't know. It's especially for the folks on this call, it's so important that you're able to be up to date and really understand that. The third area is around the right mindset and attitude and having a positive attitude. And for me, that is around, I definitely say, when you've got the right attitude and the right mindset, you're able to speak without people feeling that you're being funny or difficult, but you're being insightful. The mindset is a very important tool. Employers want to know that Irene, if I give her feedback, she takes it on positively and does something about it. She doesn't get offended, she doesn't go and sulk, she doesn't blame anyone else. She has that positive mindset, that positive attitude. Oh, something has definitely come up. Irene, can you stay till 10 p.m.? I've done all of those things that I tell you about. Sometimes in your head, you're like, oh, do I have to? I've done all of those things. And employers recognize those things and they're grateful for those things. And if they're not grateful, you've learned something from that process as well. So I think the mindset is incredibly important, and also having the ideas. And the fourth one is around skills. I mean, we can't have any of these things without you being skilled. So again, like I said, skills do not equal I've got a degree and therefore I'm skilled. If you've got a degree in finance, you still need to either be chartered in some way to be able to practice the profession. That still is the same in many other professions. You still need to have the skills. So employers at this stage, it's a basic requirement you have the skills, and then employers look for those personal attributes. That's what sets you apart, and that's what makes you different. So my takeaways are the right healthy attitude. Sorry, I've got the right slide. So for me, remember I mentioned before about failure. In my career, so what comes to mind for me? Before success comes difficult situations, challenging situations, and failure. And I could do a whole talk based on the fact that I failed projects, I failed with people, I failed with work that I was supposed to do. I'm certainly not trying to paint a picture that everything went smoothly and well. That would be a false statement. But what I have learned in the various areas of failure, because I have learned that it teaches you valuable lessons, and you have to manage your ego. I have had times where I've had to go to people and apologize for what I have done or what I didn't do as a leader and why things didn't go well. Now, if you're not able to do that and manage your ego in the process, that has taught me personally a lot. And I think that's taught me humility and being humble. You also need the right people around you as well. So it's taught me how to manage my ego. Helps me to also identify with others, right? Because people also realize, okay, so she does fail too. She's not perfect. And I think that's also important. I've mentioned humble, but most of all, you know, failure has also taught me to even be more determined, to pick myself up, dust myself off, and move on. Accept what happened, didn't like it, want to change it, move ahead, and I'll do it much better next time. And so I think there is always a lesson to learn when you are going through your career path. No matter where you are on that journey, as you grow, as you progress, as you do work for longer than you want to, I think there is always a lesson. And my third point here is invest in yourself strategically. Think about the courses that you choose. Think about the extra courses that you choose. Think about the extra things that you do. People will say to me, another question might be, well, Irene, there are no opportunities. As far as I'm concerned, there are non-for-profit organizations. There are startup businesses. There are businesses. We always need talented people. Not everything has to translate into a financial gain. So think about how you invest your time. A training course, an on the job. Can I help you do this? Can I be involved in this project? I think those are ways in which you can develop yourself. So there are some questions to ask yourself, and I think those are very important. And I've talked to you about passion. As you go through this presentation, think about what drives you. I've talked about drive in the beginning, the passion. Are you a master of your own craft, or the craft that you're trying to perfect? Are you ready for the future of work? The future of work is this new digital environment. Robots are not going to completely take over, but we are going to be expected to be more creative. We are going to be expected to be more flexible and adaptable. Are you ready for that? Do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Is your mindset right? Okay, I'm open-minded. I'm ready to take on what challenges are. I'm going to try. I'm giving it my best shot. Are you like, I can't do this. I don't like this. I'm not doing it. What are your goals? And are they smart goals? I mean, everybody talks about they want a career, they want to develop. Do you have a plan? Or do you just say you want to develop and hope for the best? The people that get to the top are strategic about how they get there. Believe me, there are not many people that say to you, oh, I got to the top and I don't know how I'm here. I don't know how I got here. They may not start with a plan, but I'm telling you, halfway through their career, they'll get a coach and they'll get a plan. And are you clear around your communication? And I think that I certainly want you to think about those questions as well. So what I want to leave you with is, so while you contemplate that, what I can do for you is at Carving Clay, we have a career guidance program. And in our career guidance program, we have a slide. In our career guidance program, we do career conversations, we do CV reviews, and we do interview tips and techniques. My team is skilled with HR consultants who are going to be able to help you on that journey, particularly wherever you are in your career path. We do one-to-ones, we'll do group sessions around your industry, your insights. I think a lot of people don't know enough about their industry and how they can actually get into a particular industry and what that means. I've seen many CVs that are 5 pages, 6 pages, not well structured, spelling mistakes, not selling you properly. We have some tips, we've got some downloadable tips. Just make some time to sit and contact any of our HR consultant. Here are the contact details, and we can even go through interview tips. I'll give you a personal story to end. I recently interviewed a person for a role, and you know, they didn't come to the interview prepared. They thought they were prepared. They thought that they could flatter their way through the interview. They were not able to clearly articulate why they wanted the position and what they had been doing. They were not clear at all. And therefore, what then happened is they came across as inexperienced. They came across as, this is not the person that I want to interview. Whereas I interviewed somebody else who came across clear, concise, took the time to research a little bit about the company, came with questions. It's always very strange when you come to an interview with no questions. You know, so I think that a lot of the time we take some of this for granted, that we will certainly get the job because we've got knowledge. Remember what I said about personability. You know, that's an important factor. So these are the contact details for Carving Clay. Please do get in touch. We've got an exclusive offer, which I spoke to Rachel about, and we'll be more than happy to help you. And then the last slide is just on Carving Clay and who we are. And I would love the opportunity for you to follow us on LinkedIn. We have a big profile on LinkedIn as well, and we're providing insights about organizations as well. So thank you very much, Ignatius, for the opportunity to share with you my presentation. Yes, I went over 30 minutes, I apologize. So I'm ready and open for questions, Ignatius.
Thank you so much, Irene. It's been a wonderful session. In fact, I was taking down some notes as you were giving the presentation. I bet you I have learned a lot talking about what employers look out for in relation to self-mastery, agility, mindset. And so I have a few questions I would like us to discuss.
Sure.
For someone who works hard, I get a lot of people saying that some people climb the corporate ladder with ease, while the rest work hard to just ease their jobs. What is the secret of those who climb the ladder with ease, and why don't some people who work hard get the opportunity to climb the ladder? Because it looks as if sometimes they say it's probably due to favoritism from the side of the boss or other factors. Can you give us insights on what, if there's any secret to people climbing the ladder with ease and people not climbing it easily? What are the insights into that?
Sure, happy to, because I get this, this comes up a lot. And I would say a couple of things, a bit like what I was saying in my presentation, Ignatius, is it depends which lens you want to look at, right? Which way you want to see this. Yes, I'm sure, like all things, there will be people that do things not in the right way, as we say politics, right? But not everybody does that. And certainly when you get to the top, you will need to have some level of experience to be able to practice that job. I think that, so there are a couple of things. Like I said, the knowledge, the skills are important. And that is a factor that you need to work hard at. You need to be able to demonstrate that, yes, you're qualified. I know you've got the qualifications, right? But beyond that, you're able to articulate what it is that you do. So for example, there's no point in saying I'm qualified HR when now I get an HR question, I can't answer that. It gets to a point where I might think you're a very nice person, but I can't advance you. Or I can't trust what you will say, or you may communicate in a very harsh way. You may communicate in a very difficult way, and I can't do that. And I can't trust you. Part of the process here is about trust. Do you know what I mean? It's about being able to trust that you, if I give you this opportunity, you will actually deliver the opportunity. Remember I was saying before, hard work, we should determine what hard work is and means. Is hard work meaning I'm busy and I'm busy doing not much and not contributing? Or is hard work I'm actually doing all the things that I'm supposed to do, I'm not getting the recognition? Have you had the ability to talk to your leader about that and ask them, why is it that I've done this and I've done that and all my objectives have been met and I do not feel like I'm getting the opportunity? Is it an organization, therefore, you should think about continuing your career in? So I think that when we talk about the corporate ladder, there is the skill and experience is one. Your ability to be personable, your ability to communicate. I mean, I've had situations where people are very good, but I can't put them in front of people. Because when I put them in front of people, they will stutter, they will they will not be concise, they sweaty, hot. You know, they all of those things will happen. And at the end of the day, at the next level, maybe you're not ready for it. So that would be my response. Have the brave conversation. If you're doing all the things that you said you're doing, have that brave conversation with your line manager. These are my goals. And are you doing the things that your line manager said you should be doing? Or are you doing other things that you think are important to get you up the ladder?
Exactly. That's right. Thank you so much for this answer. Sometimes people say that they have this passion for this particular career, but because there's not been any opportunity in that career line, they find themselves pursuing other jobs. Yes. And what happens if someone is always found changing jobs from this career path to this career path, and then he has the intention of eventually building up his skills to pursue that dream career or that long-term goal? What advice would you give for people who find themselves in such situations?
Yeah, again, I've met those as well. I think, you know, obviously there are circumstances, and there's sometimes a time and a place, and you know, some would say there's a little bit of luck as well. I think that we must exhaust all opportunities to get into that environment. I know that we're working in Africa, and I know that we have some limitations, I understand. But like I said, are all opportunities, have we gone into, is your industry, is there a way of a nonprofit you can help? Is there a way of an entrepreneur that you can help? How did you get yourself noticed? I mean, I come across CVs. I used to come across CVs all the time. There are some CVs, like I said, that stand out, and there are some, they don't. They don't stand out. How do you even approach the organization that you want to join? Right? Do you just you just send a letter in and hope that you'll get a reply? I mean, how do you go about finding out about people in this industry? How can you make contact with them? Have you tried all you can to exhaust your every opportunity before you say that? Now, if you have, and you have to change industry, remember what I talked about around the passion, right? Because you can still pursue something as a hobby, but it's important that, my view is, especially as you're growing your career, you need some stability. Yeah, so changing jobs every 2 years or what have you will give the organization this impression that you may become a master of nothing. I know that we are in the space where, you know, people change now and it's a different world. We don't stay around for 20 years. But if I see someone's CVs every 18 months, they've changed here, what comes to mind is, are they a difficult employee? You know, is their performance bad? Are they very impatient? There's something not quite adding up for me. Because I think what is important is you've got to be able to stick around, because remember what I said before, it's not every day that you're going to enjoy your job. It's not every month. You know, we can all say 2020 was a write-off, right? But companies want to know that you are able to stick at something. So the moving around, I think, needs to be managed, right? Because when you get in front of a senior person like myself, I want to understand why you made the moves. And if I don't think it's credible enough, then that opportunity might slip you by, even though you may be a very good candidate. Because I wouldn't want to take you on and in 18 months you've left me.
Right. That's a very great question. And another question I have is, so for someone who is very passionate about his or her job and has the drive, has mastered his or her craft, and wants to climb the corporate ladder, How
Mhm.
does that person do that without becoming a slave to his or her job? How can the person create a balance between work and other activities so that he or she doesn't become a slave to the job, all in the name of climbing the corporate ladder?
I think it depends what we mean by slave to the job. There is definitely parts in our career where we are going to have to sacrifice, and we're going to have to do more than we're even comfortable to do. And you have to determine how long you're prepared to do that for. I talked about balance. It's difficult, right? You may have a family, you may have other activities, if it's not a family, other interests. I think now more than ever, we should be clever with technology, we should be smart about the way in which we work, and we should set boundaries for ourselves. But at the same time, there is everybody who's trying to climb the top. There is a moment in your life where those boundaries are probably crossed, if I'm honest, and you just need to decide how long you're prepared to do that for. I think it is important that, for me, this is what I did. My Monday to Fridays, I would dedicate to my work and try my best to be available, and I would make sure I try to keep my weekends for my family. I didn't want anything to particularly interfere with the family setting. Now, that may not work for everybody. So that's some of the balance that I looked at. And if you have other interests, it's also about being efficient, right? So it's about the work you do and how you focus at it. Do you get into the office and do you go chat to everybody? I mean, now we're all not going into the office, but do you chat to everyone? Have you found that when you're remote working, you're a bit more efficient because you don't have those distractions? I think it's important to have that. And then also think about the type of organization in which you're working. If you feel recognized and rewarded for the efforts that you put in, you're likely to continue to do that for a while. But if you feel that you're doing that and you're a slave to the company and they're not even recognizing you, you need to advise yourself if that's what you want to do.
All right. Thank you so much. And how can an individual know
Ignatius,
if
you've got a lot of questions that people are. Do you want to ask some
this is
of
my
the questions
final
from the?
yes, this is my final one before I delve into that from
Okay.
members. How can an individual know if he is climbing too high or too fast up the corporate ladder?
But why would that be a problem? Let me understand the context.
Yes, because for some people, especially in the African setting, some people might attribute climbing too fast to be a sort of fine. They are efficient in the workplace and they do the work efficiently. They are hardworking, etc. But they realize they start climbing up so fast and the confidence drops down because they feel that taking up this extra role or getting this position is not what
Right.
I actually prepared for at this particular time. So it also affects their confidence.
Right. Right, I understand. I think this is where, good question actually. I think that what I would say is we should be careful how much we are in a rush. What I have found, particularly younger people of today, they absolutely are in a rush to get to the top. We love to compare. So I feel like I've met a lot of younger people who are like, this person and I went to school together, they're here, I'm not, I can do this, I've got the same qualification, I answer the questions in the same way. Remember I was saying in my discussion before, mastery. Mastery is very important. Mastery is a bit like when you have knowledge and know your stuff, if you get 100 questions, you can answer those 100 questions. So I think it's also important to say not every promotion you should take. I know that there's a desperate need to, I want to be the boss, but I always say this to my team. I've said this so many times. When you are finally sitting in the seat, I'll use HR as a good example, and I'll use the unfortunate side when you have to let someone go. Imagine your company comes to you. Imagine right now like even with COVID, we haven't seen this before to this level. And your boss says, right, I want you to now do a change management program and an organizational effectiveness program, and I want you to release 200 people, and I want you to do it like this. And you haven't even done anything like that before, and you are the boss. How would you feel right now? If you could swap that job with someone else right now. So you have to ask yourself the question, when you sit in the boss's seat, you do boss's work. And it's not a blagging issue. It's not, oh, I'll try. These are affecting people's lives, right? You wouldn't take a promotion in the healthcare industry, would you? You wouldn't say, oh, I'm budding to be a doctor and I've done 2 years, so I want to be a surgeon. It doesn't work like that. And the corporate environment, we should also treat it as such. Just because some people talk well doesn't mean there's substance there. So I think it's very important to know when a promotion is at this time, this won't be good for me because I'll be managing my colleagues who have more experience, whatever the scenario is. Yeah, that would be my response. I think the ability to say no, you want to remain in what you're doing, you'd love the opportunity to work alongside the person or whatever, but right now, this probably doesn't work for you, I think is just as important because, Ignatius, we have seen a lot of people who have done that, who have taken on the job and they have fallen flat. We've seen a lot of it.
Right. Thank you so much. I'll now delve into asking questions from members. This is from Elizabeth Ewudiwa, and she says, what are career opportunities in HR as a young journalist? Sometimes I think the role of HR has been reduced to being a role that you don't need an expert to manage. It seems like mostly MNCs have embraced the significance.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth, and keep doing HR. I encourage you. I get this quite a lot, and I think at the beginning of my discussion, I was saying to you that HR now seems even more relevant than they were, particularly in this COVID era. Good organizations, and I think this counts for our continent as well, are beginning to take HR seriously. I know what you mean by HR in a way is being reduced in some companies to administration, welfare, they don't have a seat at the table. I think that you need to look at two things as a young generalist. You need to try and get yourselves into the organizations where they do take HR seriously, because I think it will shape your future, especially as a young generalist. So yes, those multinational organizations or those bigger African organizations will be a place that you should definitely start. But I also think in your organization where you might be now, it's also about value. So even as a young generalist, beyond the administration or whatever is being asked of you, what value do you add? I see a lot of business leaders also getting frustrated because when they do give HR responsibilities, we don't always live up to them because
I think her line just dropped. She'll join us back shortly. Kindly hold on as she joins back. Please bear with us. She'll be back shortly. Okay. Yes. She's back now. Okay.
Hi, sorry about that. We obviously dropped off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. So as I was saying, Elizabeth, I think that as a young generalist at this moment, you need to be strategic in the companies that you join, because it's going to give you a great start into the HR environment. And that might be the multinationals. And if it's not the multinationals, then you can also look at non-for-profit organizations that are global, that have a presence in the UK. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. UK, sorry, UK, US, Europe, across the world, not just that.
Okay, thank you. This is another question from Koko Oye Osei, and she says, did you have any difficulties identifying your passion from the start? And how would you advise a young person to identify his or her passion?
Did I have a start? Not for very long. I mean, I've also had people who have definitely come to me and said, I don't know what to do. I would ask a few questions, and this is where the coach comes out. It's like, everybody has a passion for something. You need to sit down and really think through, and this is where sometimes it's important to think through with a partner, right? As to what you like doing, right? Because I know that a lot of people are like, well, I don't know. And I think for me, it stems a lot from what you studied. I mean, were you told to? I've met lots of people that were told they had to study science, or they had to study this, and that's not really what they want to do. And now at least we're in a world where you can also do vocational work, right? Because people are making huge strides in the vocational space. So I don't think it has to be that you have to have a degree and you have to be in corporate and all of that. I think there are people that are setting up their businesses and things like that. So I think you need to have a candid conversation with yourself, because it might not even be in the corporate space. I mean, take fashion. Fashion's big. It's trending big time, isn't it? I mean, it's a whole career in itself there. So I just think that it's a candid conversation about what you like to do and what you're good at. Those things need to match. Otherwise, it is a hobby, right? There's no point in saying, I really want to be, I don't know, a finance professional, but I don't like numbers. I don't know. It doesn't work. You need to say what I like doing, what I could see myself doing. If you haven't come to that decision yet, which is also fine, then you can be trying things. You can be saying, let me go into here, let me try. I mean, one way that you can look at this is actually being an assistant to somebody. Now, again, some people might say, oh my gosh, I don't like that. But being assistant to someone, maybe who's senior, can give you a lot of exposure, right? And then from there, it helps you build your career as well, as you learn some organizational skills, you learn to work with people, you learn to work with demands, and that gives you the opportunities that, that bit of the job I really like doing was the brand bit. I think I want to pursue that. That bit that was the finance bit, I really want to do that. So I think that would be my response to you.
All right. Thank you so much. This is another question from Pius Mensah. And he's asking, he says, I believe environment plays a crucial role in developing one's career or leadership, of which Africa seems to be a sophisticated environment. So as a great leader like you, how are you able to leverage to your advantage? If possibly, can you add the principles you live with? Thank you.
Okay, I didn't catch, sorry, the line went funny. So I caught the environment. Who is that question by? Sorry.
From Pius Mensah, and he's saying, how were you able to leverage the complexities of the environment of Africa to your advantage?
Okay, no problem. I think what I would say, Pius, is what are the principles? I think that it goes back to being a relatable person. So so it wasn't, let me give you a little bit of history. Obviously, I came into Africa a little bit later, and you assume, rightly or definitely wrongly, that Africa operates the same as where I came from. That's not the case. So you need to learn very quickly your environment. You need to study your environment. So that would be principle number one: study your environment and know the environment in which you're in. Then I think that when you study the environment, you will start to recognize that in Ghana, people's attitudes and approach and behavior is like this. Versus when I was fortunate, and I think there was a little bit of a difference here, is I have been able to live in a couple of other countries, right? So for example, when I've lived in South Africa, the attitude is slightly different. And therefore, learning and studying that, I think it's important not to take for granted just because you think that way, everybody should think that way. I experience this a lot in all of the countries that I live and work in. There is sometimes a little bit of a closed assumption that because everybody thinks it's like this, this is how it should be. And I think sometimes we try to impose our views on the way things should be. I think that the other principle for me is being open-minded. Yeah, I think it's important to be open-minded around the approach. So study the environment, be open-minded, and be personable with people, relate to people, try to understand why they are coming at it from a different perspective. Then for me, you start to break down the complexities, because when you talk to people on a human level, it's no longer complex. Systems make things complicated, right? But now all of a sudden, it's not about complexities because you're talking from one person to another. And that's what I was able to do. I was able to have, clearly I have strong principles of my own, some integrity of some do's and don'ts. Regardless of Africa's environment, I'm going to keep my integrity. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. If I have to be constructive and give you feedback, I will do that. But the way in which I will do it for the various environments is important. Some will prefer direct, some will prefer me to go around the houses. All of that you have to learn and be able to factor that in your environment. And I think that question doesn't just go to Africa. I think it goes to organizations too. So for example, you go to organization A has a different culture to organization B. Right? You can't do the same things you were doing in organization A and bring that to B. It doesn't work. So you need to learn how to be flexible and adaptable and know your environment.
All right. Thank you so much. This is another question from Lord Adam, and he says, what advice would you give a young person when it comes to networking with industry leaders and mentors?
When working with industry leaders and mentors, I think that, we are, like I said, when I started, we're all human. We've also all been there. I mean, most leaders, industry leaders and mentors, they want to give back. They want to help other people. I certainly want to help other people grow and develop. I think that what I would say is, be sharp. Right? I think that you owe it to yourself to know what you've at least learned and be able to interpret what you have at least learned. I think that be sharp and be bold, right? This after all is an industry leader or a mentor. You want to stand out and you want to be noticed. And I think you can also share your story. I like the work that you do. I think you've made a great impact. I'd love the opportunity to learn from you or learn from some of the things that you've done. What advice can you certainly give? I think it's important to be realistic, relatable, but don't stalk. Don't over flatter and think that that's going to get you further. I mean, I think it's also about being respectful as well. I personally respond to, of course, reach out, all of that kind of thing. But I think that you've got to try and know what you're about. And I will be impressed by your research or what you've done or, that kind of thing. So I think, that would be my response.
That's a great answer. We have another question from Na Ade Foster Kote. And he says, this is a question relating to the last question I asked. And
Sure.
he's saying that is it far stretched for someone who lacks practice in a particular career to take on roles beyond his level of expertise as a career change or taking on new challenging roles?
If I get the question right, I would ask myself, why would you do that? So you want to change career, but then you want to take on more responsibility in an environment which you know not much about. I don't know, maybe I'm not getting it right. If I am, I would say that that's career something. That's not positive. I would say that, yes, I think most people would change career and either step down, right? I'm not saying, because I know that the other side of the coin for people is I want to still progress my career. I think it's a risk. I mean, if it pays off, that's brilliant. But to change your career and then still at least want to be higher than where you started, I can't see that being a positive way forward for you. You're going to struggle. You might make it, but you are going to struggle. And that new career, that new company who's helping you with that career, maybe if they're very supportive and they're willing to take that risk with you, that's a different matter. Then I think that you've at least got some safety net. But I think it's important that you have that safety net.
Okay, thank you so much. This is another question. And she says, I believe in building one's passion from childhood, but it looks like it's African setting. How do we cultivate it?
Ignatius?
Yeah. Did you
I'm
hear
sorry,
the
I've
question?
lost you. No, I didn't. Please
Okay.
repeat it.
I believe in building one's passion from childhood, but it looks
Okay.
like this is a barrier in most African settings. How do we cultivate this attitude, especially in the minds of African parents?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? But it's interesting because I'm sure that it's not just Africa that suffer these challenges as well, to be honest. I agree. I think that I would say each day gets a little bit better, right? I think us, I'm a parent, so us as African parents, I think of course we aspire to want to get the best for our kids, and because we have gone on our own journey and seen sometimes the difficulties and the challenges, you want to protect your children from that. Equally, I'm personally a very strong believer that you have to do what you're passionate about because you can make something of it. Now, I think that we need to think about Africa. We need to think about our career in the Africa context. So there are some careers, I'm trying to think of one, that it might not do as well. Like, for example, I'm sure like because I used to work for a microbiology company, a microbiologist. For example, you've got AstraZeneca, you've got Johnson & Johnson, you've got all of these big global organizations, right? In Europe, in the US, and so on. And therefore, you can build a lovely career being a microbiologist. Maybe in Ghana, we don't have those big, or any other African country, we don't have those big global names. And therefore, you might be very interested in doing microbiology, but the reality is there isn't that expertise. Right? If you're looking to be a heart surgeon, there isn't that expertise. So you've got to think of two things. Either that means you're going to take your career off the shores of Africa, and maybe you can progress your career there, or you're going to have to think of what else you can do in your environment. So I think for us as our parent side, I think that there is more information coming through, and I think where you can, and I know it's sometimes difficult, share that information with them. I think they're becoming more and more open-minded to the possibilities. Who would have thought social media in itself would take off? For example, there's a whole career there. There's new reality TV. There's a whole career there. I mean, you know, people now, Africans are now acting in Hollywood, so there's potentially those opportunities. But I think it's a slow road. I think it's still general work in an office, work in a bank, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer. I think there's still that. But I think it's about how we can hopefully continue to educate our parents. And then also, I think that you need to think about your career in the context of your environment.
Great, great answer. I think this is a final question, and it's from Grace. She says, how do you manage yourself if you are already in a job or project you are not passionate about?
And I love that question. Thank you, Grace. I say this, I always use this, I've been dying to use this example today. It's like exercise. Now, I do exercise because it is important, and I have to do it because I have to stay fit and I have to stay healthy. And it's more for health reasons than me loving to do this exercise that wears me out after 2 minutes. And it is the same, I think, with work. It is about survival, isn't it? So there's a time where you don't enjoy it. Nobody said that you're going to enjoy your job every single day. It's like your life. We all live life. It's not every day, every month, every year that we are enjoying even our friendships, but it has to be done. So I think I think we put too much expectations sometimes on what we're trying to get out of our jobs or our careers. This is all part of the learning process, and it's part of the mastery process. We need people who've been doing their jobs for 2 or 3 years, who are masters and experts at it, because we rely on their mastery. And their importance is extremely important. It's the same way as when I go back to my exercise. Every single day I have to do a little bit because it's about the end result. It's not about I need to enjoy it every single time. That's too much of an expectation. So I think that when it gets to a point where it becomes, I've been doing this for this long and I really am not enjoying it, then it is your responsibility to look for that next opportunity. Again, I feel that we think that the organization is going to come to us and say, oh, I think you're bored. Would you like another opportunity? That's not going to happen. You need to be engaging with your line manager. You need to be saying, look, I would love the opportunity to do other things, but you need to be able to demonstrate to them that you're doing these things that they've asked you to do and what you're paid to do well. Because if you can't do those things well, I'm not going to give you any other opportunity.
All right, thank you. I think someone just dropped another question, and would you want me to spell it out?
Okay, is this about how do you react? How much do you want to be paid?
Yes.
I think,
yes.
I mean, that's an interesting question in itself, isn't it? Because I can't sit here now and say, I think you should be paid X. I think you should know what the market is paying for that role. You need to do your homework. You need to do your homework. I know that there's a side of people want an opportunity. But I think that if you want to be satisfied in that organization, you need to do some level of research. Because if you also accept something that you're not so happy about, it also shows up very quickly. Because then all of a sudden is, oh, I'm doing this job and I'm not even paid that much. And your attitude changes, you can't be bothered, you're always complaining about it. If it is possible, find out the market rate for that job. If, for example, you're desperate to get a job, know that that's the reason you're taking that job, because you are desperate to have that opportunity. Not everything is about a financial reward. I have personally taken jobs where it wasn't about the finance. I wasn't happy about it, but I did it. And actually the reward comes much later. Doesn't come in a year's time when you're looking for an outrageous wage increase. It can come years down the line when somebody else says, oh, I'm looking for a very experienced person who's done this, that, and the other. And because I was able to say I've done all of these things, I then got paid the market rate. I think we have to be very careful when it comes, right? I know pay is extremely important, but sometimes along the road of success, remember I said there will be challenges, and we need to think about how you're going to manage those challenges.
Great answer. I think for now our questions are exhausted, and
awesome. Thank you very much.
It's been a wonderful time. Someone just...
Can that be the last question?
Okay, yeah, it wasn't.
This one is the last question.
I think we are okay with the question.
Okay. No problem.
I don't know if I can give a final question.
Yeah.
Yes. So in terms of value or providing value to your company, what time do you think is the right time to go to your HR or your boss to demand probably a pay raise? If, for instance, you're always providing value to the company and they are seeing growth. So if, let's say, you're into a sales company and you're always exceeding your targets and bringing a lot of customers, making a lot of sales, and the company is making profits which exceeded their expectation, what time do you think is the ideal time to go to them demanding a pay raise? Because
I think there are two things. I think that organizations, we have to take the plus and the minus. So, you know, with that question, would you also say that when you don't bring in the sales, they should cut your pay? I think that it's got to be a balanced relationship. It is an employer, and you also expect the employer to pay you sometimes in the bad times, right? And we are experiencing across the world the bad times. I'd like to hope that there are a couple of things, that they've got the right, you have signed up to the right reward and bonus structure as such that when you exceed your targets, you should be rewarded for that. If that hasn't been properly negotiated, then that's something to talk about at your next annual review, right? So it doesn't come out of the blue, right? You don't just sort of say, right, well, I want a pay rise. But there's usually a cycle. But we also have to remember when we're doing this is that organizations stick by you in the toughest of times as well. Well, many do, right? So when things are not going, business is not doing well, the organization will also come to you and tell you that it's not doing well, we're trying to turn things around. They might even have to let people go. They might have to do pay cuts if they have to. So, or a lot of the time they take that on because they don't want to lose you as a person. So I think it's important. It goes back to how you negotiate in the very first place and what structure you come into. I think it's dangerous to think you as an individual are going to go in and change your pay structure, because guess what? You work with lots of other people. So when you get a pay rise, all the people that helped you get those sales, do they also get a rise as well? So I think that a lot of the time we always tend to think from the employee's perspective, right? That's why I'm here, as opposed to also the employer's perspective. It's got to feel like a fair relationship. So that would be my comment.
Awesome. Can we take a final question, please?
We can take a final question. Is this from Elizabeth?
Yes, from Elizabeth.
Okay, so I see, when did I make a decision to build my own company? To be honest, Elizabeth, I've been wanting to build my company for a while. It's just about when the right, actually you lead me into my closing statement. It was just about when was the right time. Again, just some insight for you. I wanted to do this probably 10 years ago, but what was interesting is at the time I thought that's what I wanted to do, and not realizing actually I needed to get more experience, more exposure, you know, more insight, understanding Africa. In those last 10 years, I've been able to do all of those things. So it felt natural that I want to challenge myself to be an entrepreneur, because I also feel like there is a gap that I'm trying to fill. I mean, you will know of all people here as an HR professional that HR practice across the continent could be better, could be done differently, and could certainly be up to date with many practices across the world. So I feel that there's a gap that carving clay is plugging. And so that's what gave me the ability to develop carving clay, as I mentioned before, and move into the entrepreneurial space, because I see that also as a personal challenge. You know, there's one thing to be a business executive leading somebody else's company, and I ask myself why I can't lead my own company. So that's why.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful insights. And I must say that it was very, very interactive. I would now hand over to Rachel to give the vote of thanks.
Can I just say one thing about carving clay, and then, so my before Rachel comes in, what I was saying about carving clay, we're also an HR advisory company as well. So we give and support businesses across Africa. So if you are a business leader, if you're in businesses and you think that carving clay can help you in HR advisory or executive recruitment, or in leadership development programs, we have leadership development programs for molding leaders who are new, who are early career, that want to develop themselves and become those transformational leaders. Carving Clay is your company, so please bear us in mind. So thank you.
Awesome. That was very, very, very
okay.
Good.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Irene. So on behalf of the team, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to grace this session. It was indeed very insightful, and I personally learned a lot as well. We hope to have you again sometime.
Sure,
thank you very much. And thank you too to your team as well. Papa and everyone, we appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, it was great having you, Irene, and you really taught us a lot. We hope to have you another time. And I would announce to everyone that Carving Clay has a special offer for all GYLCV members. If you want a CV review, yes, it's displayed on the screen now. So career guidance, CV review, and interview tips, you can hit them up. I've dropped the email in the chat session, info@carvinclay.com. So you can reach out to them and they'll be happy to help you. We have a special offer for all members of GYLCD and all those who made it to this wonderful session. It's been great having you all. I would like to ask you all to give your impression, what you learned about the program or what you learned from our speaker. You can share your impression in the chat session. Just drop your impression. And I'll finally drop Irene's social media handles if you want to reach her, or if you can follow her on her social media platforms. I'm sharing it right away. So drop your general impression, how you okay, great. I can see people dropping their comments. All right. Oh, Chisom Obiru, you missed. Sorry. You next time, please join earlier. It was very, very insightful. I'm sorry you missed this, but we'll share a recording to everyone. Yes. I can see people sending their comments. All right. It was great having you all. These are the members. Okay, so I'm sharing the social media handles as well. You can reach her, follow her on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you can visit her website to read insightful messages. I think she has some blogs which she shared messages on innovation, succeeding, etc. So this is her email, her website, and Instagram handle, as well as Twitter. So please do all to follow her, and you learn a lot. Great. So I would finally talk about GYLCD as I stated earlier on, since we are an organization that is focused on empowering young Africans to develop Africa and cause change. We believe that training and grooming individuals, as well as helping them follow their passion, will help them bring that change they desire. So, thank you all for taking part in today's meeting. The talk session was very insightful, and we hope to have Irene again for another session. It will be a privilege to have her here share other information with us. I believe that whatever she shared here, please be a doer of it. Don't just be a hearer. She shared what employers look out for. She shared 5 key lessons you need for your career: knowledge, build your knowledge and skills, be personable, be a hardworking person, develop your communication skills, and build a network. So please do well to practice whatever we've shared here. And one thing that struck me most was she said, invest in yourself strategically. Please don't forget that. Invest in yourself strategically. Whatever you're doing, try to invest in yourself strategically. So I'll now wrap it up and say that our next talk session will be coming up. Information will be shared by our social media platforms and our WhatsApp platforms. Thank you all for taking time to join us. It was great having you all, and we hope to have you next week. Thank you all, and we can now sign out.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. I appreciate your presence. So if there are any more questions you want to find out, you can communicate with me. Let me share our our email. And you can WhatsApp me on 026. Sorry. Let me add country code. Yes. So I guess, and if you have any questions, you can email or WhatsApp this number. Let me share Ignatius's number as well. Ignatius, please, if you can type your number, please. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. I see Emmanuel Bamfo, Ama, David, Dorcas, Elizabeth, Gladys, Mark, Nadai. We appreciate you all. So don't miss the next session. All information will be communicated on the platforms. So, yes, thank you everyone, and have a great evening.
All right. Thank you all. You can kindly sign out now.